Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming today. A little housekeeping. The restrooms are open in the front of the church if you need to use them, and they're on each side. There's water here for you and sanitizer and mask. We thank you for coming to a COVID candidate forum. Very simply, we're going to do today sewer and water first, and if you have other questions to ask the candidates, you can ask them, but topic of discussion today will be sewer and water. We'd like you to ask the questions from the audience of how you feel and why you came. If you have other questions, save them, but we'd like to try the first 45 minutes to an hour to get through. You only have 1 minute to ask your question. Do not go into any detail. Ask the question. We want to keep it very professional, very simply. No disrespect to what has happened or in the past. Do not bring anything up. Ask your question if you want to on the city and on city issues. And the same with the candidates. No disrespect to anyone. We just really want to keep this very professional, very forum, and put your answers out there of how you feel. Our candidates are going to give you a 2-minute introduction of who they are and why they're running for office. And then we'll start. And so think about your questions on sewer and water. And you can ask other questions the last hour, I'll say, as we go through this. But we'd like to try to have a little format of what's going on. And I thank you all for coming. And first, let's thank the candidates for running. So please give them a round of applause because it's very hard. Because when you run for public office, it's a lot. So I tell everyone they put themselves out there, and we need to thank everyone that's in public office. It does not pay a lot of money, and if you guys know what people make, it doesn't. And they put themselves out there very hard, and we need to just respect that. So thank you. So we're going to start off first at this side. Unless I start this side. Last time I started you, so let's start with Miss Karen. Y'all are sitting the same way.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Karen Waite, and I am running for Solvang City Mayor. A couple things I want to get out there right away, off the bat, to put these under the rug. I was never, ever in favor of the demolition of the Veterans Memorial Building. I come from a proud, long line of military history in my family. My father is buried at Arlington. He is an Army colonel. He's buried next to my grandfather, who is an Army colonel, the recipient of the Croix de Guerre. My grandmother is also buried in Arlington, and my mother, Nancy, who recently passed away, will also be interred there next to my father. Next, I'd like to touch on the fact of the recall of one of our council members. I believe in the democratic process. I believe in the electoral ability to vote. The residents of the city of Solvang called for the recall. I represent the residents of the city of Solvang. I voted for the recall. Finally, I would like to address that my signs have been continually vandalized and stolen. I choose to run a clean campaign, so let's get that started.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Charlie Uhrig, and I'm running because I love Solvang and believe that we deserve and should expect a respectful and transparent local government that believes in community and values the input above everything else. I believe it is more important to listen to, not after the fact, and that would be after, so that we can make the best and most well-informed decisions for the best of the community. And that, by doing that, that would respect our community's diverse cultures, lifestyles, and ethnicities. I feel that city staff and contract service employees should be valued. Currently, there's a hostile work environment in our city employees, and a lot of them are just anxious every single day about people that are overlooking their shoulders, or that's at least what they feel. I think they should be encouraged to give their input. We have some great employees here within the city, and whether it's the contract worker or the full-time employee, those inputs are valuable, and I don't think that our current administration is getting that type of input as much as they should. We face many tough decisions ahead, and it's important for city leadership to put the best interests of the community ahead of their own agendas. Thank you.
Good morning, thanks for coming out today. My name is Justin Rodriguez. I'm a 5-year resident of Solvang because I moved here in 2015, bought a home in Skip Mesa, and I've been blessed to start to raise a young family out here. My whole experience in city government started when I was appointed to the Planning Commission, and I've been sitting on that position for the last 2 years, I believe. And I think I got involved because Skip Mesa, where I live, I remember there was a neighbor of mine, Nietzsche. She was trying to get traffic calming measures through the neighborhood. So I started talking to people in town, and that's how I got to know people. One of the things that happened, this is a little anecdotal story, was a neighbor of mine said, "Hey, go see Matt Vanderlinden because he's busy, and he gets overwhelmed with all the tasks that he has to do being the city's engineer. There's a lot of things that on his plate." I live on a corner where a lot of people drive by very fast. As you come up Skip Mesa, it's a long straightaway, and I think just natural human instinct, you're getting off a busy highway and you want to bypass the town, so they just go very fast through my corner. Traffic calming measures were implemented throughout Skip Mesa, but they forgot my corner. So at the behest of my friend who said, "Hey, just go see Matt," I did. And Matt was kind enough to say, "Hey, tell me what you want to see on your corner. What do you think we should do?" And I happen to be an asphalt contractor, so traffic control is something that I do on a semi-regular basis. And I kind of had an idea to put some, I call them Texas box dots. Box dots are those little bumps on the road that you feel if you're going over the center line. Texas ones, we call them, because everything's bigger in Texas. There's some giant ones you could put, and I wanted people to have some sort of a barrier that's safe. If they hit it, you can drive over them, but you know you're going over the line, because people just take that corner very fast. And Matt said, "No, let's put some reflectors down." I'm almost finished with the story. And after that, the traffic calming measures were put everywhere throughout Skip Mesa except my corner. So the fact that I was able to engage him, he got a double yellow line there, and that helped slow the traffic down. They're not cutting the corner anymore, and they see there's a divided lane. That's how I kind of got involved with this whole thing, and I'm here, and it's kind of taking me on this journey to be on city council, and I appreciate your consideration. So thank you guys.
Good morning, Solvang. My name is Claudia Orona, and I am a resident of the Santa Ynez Valley for the last 13 years, and I've been a resident of Solvang for 5 years. I love this town. My family has had an opportunity to thrive in this town. It's a very unique place to live in, to play in, and to work in, as cliche as that sounds. And I want to preserve the opportunity for everybody else to thrive in this town as I have. And I am running for 2 reasons. So I have worked retail, hospitality. I have owned businesses. I have been an employee. I had lived in a nice condo. I have also lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. I have been a car owner, and I have also had to bike to work from Mora Avenue in Santa Ynez all the way to downtown Solvang. So I feel that as a person under 35 that has to juggle the responsibilities of being a citizen as well as a worker brings a fresh perspective to the city of Solvang. I believe in the democratic process, and I believe that we are better as a community. We are better as a city when we take as much input as possible. The second reason why I am running has more to do than with my involvement as a person in local government. but I also believe that the more that people get involved and the democratic process is important. While it's very great to pay attention to national issues and get very passionate, we often forget that City Hall Water District is what impacts our lives in a more immediate way than national issues. If I can do this, then more people can do it. And I thank Solvang for the opportunity to be part of the process. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mark Infanti. I'm running for Solvang City Council member, and I'm running for a couple of different reasons. I'm a retired project management consultant, and I have the time and the expertise to help make the city a little bit better. I can spend the time to get things done. My wife and I have been here since 2013, and we have made some great neighbors and friends. We've worked with city council people, we have worked with the city employees, and we think the city needs to have a little bit better support for the future of the city itself. My aim as a member of the Solvang City Council is to provide transparency and ensure that the citizens' opinions are respected. I've got 4 primary objectives. One of them is we need to have a budget. We need to be able to get through the COVID process, and we need to have a budget that takes us beyond that. And we're having real problems with the finances on the city right now. I want to be able to preserve the character, the culture, and the building design of Solvang. We need to protect and improve Solvang's water resources and infrastructure. We brought that up as the subject for today, and I think you couldn't find anything more important, particularly with the prescribed or suggested drought that's going to be here for the next few years and the issues that we're going to be dealing with. And I want to encourage and promote local businesses and promote local hiring. So I understand some of these issues. I'd like to be a part of making sure that you, as the public, get a chance to hear these issues and have a chance to speak on them and get the respect you need from the City Council. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm kind of jealous that all of you guys get to sit in the shade and I'm going to be out there in the sun most of this. My name is Chris Bowyer. I am a resident of Solvang as well. I haven't been here quite as long as these guys. I'm a security professional, a Marine Corps veteran, and at the end of the day, when I see something that concerns me, when I see a need to step up, it's what I've been doing my entire adult life. There's 3 core values on which I'm going for: transparency, accountability, accessibility. It's my belief, and every single candidate up here with me has the exact same belief, that we need to see a bit more transparency from our city government. We need to understand what's going on there at every single level, whether it comes down to finance or what's going on with, pending litigation, so on and so forth. The residents of our community want to know what's going on. We need accountability. We need to know that when people, say something or do something, they are being taken to task and, ask the hard questions as far as why was this happening the way that it has been. I think a lot of people in the community, especially people that I've spoken to, have been saying that they don't feel that there is enough accountability, and I want to restore that. And finally, accessibility. I believe that I need to be available to every single resident of Solvang. I'm the only person here, I think, who, is renting an apartment right now. I have a housemate. I argue with her on a regular basis about the dishes. I'm definitely on the working level of this community. And at the end of the day, I want to make sure that the friends and neighbors that I've made throughout our community have just as much of a say in what goes on in our local government as everybody else. It's my belief that I need to be there as somebody who is not just hearing what you have to say, but actually listening to every one of your concerns, regardless of what walk of life you come from or what it is that you're trying to accomplish in our town. Thank you.
Okay, from our audience, do we have a question on water and sewer, anyone? Anyone would like to ask a question?
Right here.
Yes.
Hi. So I've attended a lot of city council meetings over the past couple of years, at least, Solvang resident, Valley resident for a long time. 25, 28 years, I don't know. And I have questions about the water treatment plant. Obviously, it needs to be done. I don't think there's any dispute about that. It's a very complex issue. There have been consultants involved, some money spent there already. Solvang's finances are obviously very problematic right now. I've heard different numbers about what this year will end at, given the lack of tourism dollars and sales tax dollars and everything else related to COVID. I'd like to know from each of you, what's your understanding of the financial situation that Solvang will be in at the end of this year? And where do you think the money is going to come from for this treatment plant? How are we going to fund this thing? And how is it going to happen? It's a very complex issue. And I'm concerned about a general turnover of the council and a lot of new council members who may not be up to speed on all of those factors. So I'd like to know what your understanding of it is at this point.
You're right, it's a very complicated question, and I only have 2 minutes to answer it. So I actually did a tour of our wastewater treatment plant a couple of weeks ago. I spoke to the lead operator over there as well as the wastewater treatment plant supervisor, and before that I had a fantastic conversation with Matt Vanderlyn about it. The simple fact is, with the COVID impact, we were initially hearing, per your question about the financials, we were hearing that our city is going to be losing somewhere in the realm of about $500,000 every single month. Now, we're also hearing that, okay, we're at 100% TOT, or 100% occupancy for our hotels and everything like that, so obviously the numbers that we're being told versus what's going to come out are going to be different. Simple truth is nobody can really be for sure as to where we're going to stand at the end of this year with the finances, but we did take a hit. There's no going around that. The wastewater treatment plant, the current 2, revisions that are being done right now are 60% and 30% as of September 14th, completed on their studies. We're looking at a price tag of between $13 million and $16 million for this. This is not something that our city has the funds to actually address right now. We're going to have to find alternate ways. Now, there have been in the past discussions about, okay, how do we get grants? Do we use loans and everything like that? And this is what our finance director was working towards. And then COVID came along and it's kind of thrown a wrench in that. I think a new council or, the incumbents that remain on the council after the fact actually have a duty to reassess the finances of this first and foremost. I'm not a big fan of bringing in consultants and doing work that we've already done. But it's been a hot minute since we started this process, and there may be new grants, there may be new ways, from either federal or state level that we can find a way to get the additional money to offset this. So the worst nightmare of everybody in our community that the water rates, end up going up, is either softened or outright mitigated. So the very first thing we need to do to address the financials on this one is to actually go in and review what it is that we have as an option available to us and how we can apply it. And from there, we start to look at other creative avenues, other capital improvement projects that are planned all the way out through 2023. Is there any funds that we can divert from those? This is going to take creative solutions, it's going to take creative thinking, and it's going to take the cooperation of our council and our community in order to find those solutions.
It would be hard to say anything against what Chris just said. It's absolutely brilliant. We have a problem. The wastewater treatment plant came up for renewal back in, I forget when that was, a while back, a couple years ago, and we've been working on this ever since. Part of the financing issue that you bring up, we have to separate some of the financing a little bit. Because of the wastewater bill that you get every month as a Solvang citizen, there has been a little bit of that pulled off and put into a reserve. Right now, we're getting ready to go into phase 1, which will start in, start the construction of the aeration system in February of next year. Okay, that's the next phase to go on. We have the funding for that phase. That's part of that residual funding that we've collected from your wastewater bill. We do not have the funds to get us to phase 3 or the following phase, and that's where the big chunk of change is. And the other part of this situation is, what are we going to do about recycled water? I can't take any credit for this at all. Matt Vanderlinden and his engineering team has looked at, presented to the city council, and the city council has accepted his comments that say you should have a wastewater treatment plant that has the ability to do recycled water. Don't have to do it now, but you can add it on easily. So now it's a matter of, do we have the funds to do it today or do we do it later? And then what do you do with the recycled water? See, the idea is we take the recycled water and we'd sell it off to somebody who could use it. It's not potable. You can use it for agriculture. You can put it back in the ground to replenish the aquifers, the groundwater. But do we do that now or do we do that later? And then how do we get the piping to get it from the plant to where we need it? It's another cost. So that is an issue. Thank you. That is an issue that we need to address. The funding is not there. There is a grant process and there will be a grant application done in the spring of 2022 for that next phase. Thank you very much.
I will echo what Mark Infanti said and say that we are very fortunate to have Matt on staff. He's very knowledgeable about the water treatment plant, the demands, and he's also been looking at what other alternatives we have regarding working with other groups to meet the demands in Solvang. At this moment, the current city council is looking at increasing the capacity to meet the demands for water based on the development of more hotels, more visitors, more overnight stays. And there have been possibilities of looking at working with the Alisal Ranch, who are the second largest user, or I believe it's the largest user due to the golf course of water. And my understanding is that they'd like to come up with their own solutions. They don't want to work with Solvang. Los Olivos is developing their own plant. So as we run out of options to work with neighbors, we can realize that water is always going to be a need, and we are surrounded by farms that will be needing that water. So while I understand that it's hard to look at what COVID it's going to leave to our town and what our options are financially, I do believe in working with what we already have. And while I do not have a straight answer, I do trust that our engineers are knowledgeable enough to present us what our options are with the current resources that we have. And we should look at partnering with agricultural producers, not just people and organizations that rely on tourism. Thank you.
So, like everyone else said, we have Matt Vanderlinden. And I think the city council's job is to listen to the employees. Matt Vanderlinden is there for a reason, and I think taking his input and listening to what he has to say versus what is out there as far as information that people are saying, oh, how are we gonna do this and that. Sorry, this is coming out really bad, but Matt, I think the city council's job, what I like to say is to listen to Matt, use his guidance, and I think like everyone else here, we know that we're gonna have shortfalls of finances, and to guide Matt to find the most cost-effective solutions to retrofit the plant in a way that's not gonna break our budget. As I understand, there was talk at one point of rebuilding the plant entirely versus retrofitting the plant that we have that's existing. That sounds like a more cost-effective solution to me. So, talking to Matt, finding out what options there are, whether, I don't know, finding money through a bond measure or state funds that are grants. We got to look at all the options and see what's out there, because obviously everyone knows COVID has caused a major shortfall in our budget. But yes, I think it's wise for the city council to listen to the employees, see what they have to offer, what data they have collected, and then make the best decision from there. And what I'm running on is trying to keep this council basically, I want to be a budget watchdog. I want to make sure that we don't spend money unnecessarily. So there's a big project like that can run into all kinds of change orders and problems that can cause a lot of financial dilemmas. So it's really important to find the most cost-effective solution. Thanks.
I guess really just to answer your first part of the question, the way this budget is going right now and due to COVID, we really don't have an idea what the projection will be at the end of the year for the budget. That we're working on it, that's what has been said, but knowing what we have for TOT and the capacities that that is bringing in, I know as one of them mentioned that hotels are running at full capacity, that will help to offset some of it. But getting back really to the wastewater issue in that plant, there has been a storied history with the wastewater treatment plant since it's been built back in 1967 as it's currently standard. And we have had a few times where different areas such as Los Olivos and San Ynez has requested to utilize some of what we have and some of our capacity. I know that just was past city council, Matt gave a pretty long report and his recommendations on what this council should do. I applaud the council for listening to what he had to say. And I know that at least for right now, there is a $500,000 on-bill financing, zero cost, that was offered to the city to help offset some of the costs for this initial part of the treatment plant upgrade, which would help to bring the process for the denitrification up to date and more into speed. I know talking with Nathan, who's a supervisor down there, we're only running at 50% capacity currently. We have the capability to go up to 1.5 million gallons feet for capacity, and we're only running at 750,000. So we do have some room for expansion, but the basins are all running, all the 3 basins right now are currently running full. We're not able to do some of the processes that we need, which is why they're doing the new aerification process right now, the step process, and that's the next step forward to try to continue to get that. So as far as we're working on those upgrades and everything is a process, it will be coming through. Thank you. It will be coming through over the next few years.
Sorry.
All right, first I'd like to address the issue of this budget that we either do or we do not have. Well, let me assure you, we do. We do have a budget. Not only do we have a budget, but we have a 2-year financial plan that has been established in the first time in Solvang history that this council has put out there. So with that in mind, we do have budget items for situations such as this for the wastewater treatment plant. And yes, it will be a 3-step process. It will be in the nature of anywhere from $16 million, very expensive. Yes, we have put out for loans. We are looking at grants. It will be an expensive process. How that will affect individuals' water rates, we do not know at this time. Right now, we do have a little over $5 million in our wastewater treatment fund. We've got probably a little over $5 million in our water fund. We are looking at specifically a plan that will allow us to use potable or non-potable water. We have reached out to neighboring farms, the Alisol, any partners that may be interested in receiving our non-potable water when we get to that stage. We have not had any takers. So right now it's very, very much under investigation by the entire council. We take it very seriously. We do not want to be in violation, any type of health code violations. So that's why we're actively on it. We have the right consultants in place, and just take it as it is right now. It's going to be an expensive project, and I'm not going to hide that from you.
Does anybody have any more questions concerning Waite treatment? Lee?
Thank you, Madam. Yes, I'd like to direct my question to Mr. Uhrig. to understand and to deal with as complex a question as water, it would seem to me that one would have to spend a great deal of time as a resident in Solvang. According to my researches, you have been a rental tenant in Solvang since July. Prior to that time, you owned a house and lived in Buellton on Gay Street. So for a relatively brief period, you've been a resident of this city. This is a very complex issue. I see nothing in your qualifications of your resume that would provide confidence in your ability to deal with finance, business, administration, and leadership. Do you know what CCW is? Do you know what ID1 is? Do you know what the status of negotiations is between ID1 and Solvang? You should use a hatchet.
It's a 1-minute question, I'm sorry.
You should use a hatchet.
Just ask a question.
Thank you.
Are we specifically to somebody? Lee?
So yes, I have been a resident. I made the move here so that I could run for this office. It's mainly because I felt the direction that this council was headed was not the direction that a lot of the citizens that I have been in contact with were feeling right about. The transparency and those issues were all in some of the considerations for bringing here. I did purchase my first home here in Solvang in 1999. I lived here in Solvang from 1999 to 2015, and then made a move on a new relationship and moved to Buellton. And correct, I'm not going to dispute. I moved here on July 15th. It's when I again took residence here in Solvang. I'm not sure if sitting on boards and everything is all about qualifications. I do know that one of the things as my job was to sit in a number of city council meetings and listen to what all of the past councils had to say, including this set of councils that was up there. So I've done that job here for the city of Solvang and worked here with the community as a whole. All of those entities that I mentioned since 2003 when I was hired as a community resource deputy, because I wanted the ability to be able to live and work here in Solvang. That whole time I was living here in a home that I owned through 2016. So I hope that answers your question. I do know that all of us have to be vetted and certified. That was given to me. I have a letter if anybody would like to see it. If you still question any of that, because I know that's a rumor going out there. Another rumor, just quickly to dispel, is that I do not live in a trailer in my daughter's driveway. That's never been the case. And so that to me seems pretty petty. I really didn't feel the need to try to address that. If you know who I am, I'm just coming about as someone that you can approach and that is approachable and that will listen to what you have to say. That's really all I can address on those. Yes, I do know what ID1 is and what CCW is.
What are they?
Central Coast Water District, ID1 is the area that we deal with water for St. Ines Valley.
David Jamison, I live in Solvang. Karen, I'm not going to pick on you, but you may have more knowledge than any of the rest of us. We were required in Solvang to get rid of our salt type water softeners a number of years ago. And so I think everybody can apply. I know we did. We got rid of that, and then the service comes every week or so. But I don't think the district over in San Ynez was ever required to tell their customers to do the same thing. They rent space in our sewer plant, and then they're also putting salts in it, which we have to deal with and handle. Does anybody have an opinion on that?
I actually do have an opinion on that, because I remember getting the letter. I kind of agree with that statement to a certain degree, as far as, we got a letter saying, I don't know if it was when I first moved here, but it was a couple of years ago, maybe the year before last. They said, hey, disconnect your salt, basically water softeners, because we're getting mostly state water, which is soft water, or softer water. But the thing that irked me about that, I don't really have a whole say this, but they said disconnect your water softener, but they didn't say when to re-engage your water softener. So I know it had to do partly with the wastewater treatment facility that we have, because they won't damage the aging infrastructure. But I would like, that's part of the transparency that I would like to bring to the city, or help with guidance. If you tell us to stop doing something, at least tell us when we can re-engage something. So I agree with that sentiment. Please let us know if you're telling us to stop. Please tell us when we can, if we can ever, and give us reasons why. No, that's it. That's all I had to say about that. Isn't that Forrest Gump?
Thank you, Justin. All right, so when it comes to breaking down the salt, Mr. Jameson, that you just asked, the reason that Sandy Inez didn't require that is because Solvang was doing the work for them. So we were trying to cut back on that, and it does take a lot more wear and tear on our system to get the salt out of the water. And then I'd like to help Charlie along. The CCWA is the Central Coast Water Agency. ID1 is Sandy Inez River Water District Improvement District number 1, for which I was the president of the Board of Trustees for 2 years on that district. So I hope that answers everyone's questions.
Do you know that part of the nitrification and some of the other processes that the Regional Quality Water Board asked of the city of Solvang is that's part of the reason why some of that stuff went out for the soft water, and trying to prevent the brine from going down the drains, and helping to improve the ability to treat the water better at a lower cost just for the city of Solvang. I'm not exactly sure I agree with the fact that Sandy Inez doesn't, but that's one of the issues that's the way the contract is. It could be something that we may want to relook at some of those things, and right now a lot of agencies, government-wise, are trying to get full cost back, and so if those are some of the issues that the city and or residents have, is, we're treating water for another entity. Maybe we need to relook at how that's done, and maybe they need to get charged a little bit more to help the rest of us along that line.
Any more questions towards where we are with water?
This question is primarily towards Ms. Waite, because she's the only one who's sitting on the city council right now. On the last week's meeting, there was a closed session item in regards to California State Water Resources Board in regards to getting permits to drill additional water wells in the San Ynez River. That has been going on, has been an ongoing discussion since I was first elected back in 2002. And can you give us an update on that situation?
So this actually allows me to touch on a number of issues. The first one being closed session, secret meetings versus Brown Act violations. So I am not at liberty to discuss anything that has taken place in a closed session. A closed session is for confidential matters for various reasons. But the discussion, or the question that Mr. Skid has asked was made public, and that was brought forward into our meeting, and it had to do with us possibly purchasing another 300 acre feet of water from the state of California. And that is something that we are looking into doing right now. If we do that, it would cost us approximately $550 per acre foot to do that. Maybe $1 million, possibly take that out, $58,000 a year. So that's something that we're looking into doing now. Water is a commodity. That would just be great if we could do that at this point. At this point, we're already taking 1,500 acre feet of water from the state, which only yields us about 58% of that. So it might be well worth it to go ahead and do this. We don't know. Matt Vanderlinden is looking into this, doing the numbers, running the numbers for us. So we'll take a look at that. So when it comes to transparency, I just kind of wanted to bring that up because that's been a word that's been floating around forever. Transparency, transparency. This council has been extremely transparent. We've been open about our closed sessions. We've been agendizing our closed sessions. We have hid nothing from the public. So I want to bring that one out in the forefront and sweep that one away now too. So I hope that answered your question, Ed. Do you have anything further on that? Thank you.
Do we have more questions on water right now? Because if not, there was one that came through we'd like to ask. And one of it is CSD pays 20% of the plant. Do you plan to continue that contract with the CSD in Santa Ynez? Anybody want to answer?
I believe that we always need to be looking at ways to improve contracts. So whatever we decide as a council, it would have to be put forward to the person that would be most knowledgeable about that. That would be Matt Vanderlinden. At this point, his name keeps bandied about. I applaud Matt for not taking the job as a city manager so he could actually run the infrastructure of the city. I told him that just the other day, that it was a bold move on his part to actually do what was the best part for the city, and I really thank him for that. I think all of us as residents here owe Matt and all the employees that are currently there a debt of gratitude for a lot of the sacrifices that they've made for this community as a whole, and the residents here and the business owners, for keeping all the services going as best as they can, even though they are overworked with what they have right now. But always, it's in the best interest to review contracts. I'm not sure what the contract actually says at this point, but I do know that every time contracts are coming up, to just arbitrarily roll them over without any type of discussion or any feedback from anybody, that's just not the way it should be done. Thank you.
Audience, questions?
Tracy?
Oh,
Actually, I wanted to
sorry.
say one on that.
Okay.
So for anybody not familiar with that one there, because I know like when I started learning about this, I'm originally from Germany, as I mentioned yesterday. Water is a thing that tends to fall out of the sky for us. We don't think too much about it. So moving to the U.S. and then moving into California was obviously a steep learning curve for me. With regard to the CSD 20%, what that means is that for any capital improvements projects that we take on related to our water, since with the contract as it exists right now, 20% of those costs will be borne by CSD as opposed to us, which is a great thing for us because it is a way that we can offset the costs on the capital improvement projects. When I spoke to Matt, the name that keeps on coming, when I spoke to Matt about that particular contract, it is an open-ended contract. This is not something that is coming up for a renegotiation or renewal or anything like that. It's something where at any given time, city or the CSD on their end can ask to sit down and review it and revise as necessary, or to just maintain it as it is. The very first thing that needs to happen on that one in my mind is, and this is just me speaking personally for myself right now, going over that contract, with a fine-tooth comb and seeing where it stands. On the surface, it doesn't look to me like there's anything that is problematic about this right now. Our 750 million, or excuse me, our 0.75 million gallon per day capacity on the water treatment plant as it stands right now is largely due to flow rate, which was brought on by the droughts, several years ago and all that. But we're still not at a point where we're bursting at the seams. These projects that we're talking about, this isn't, a situation where if we don't do something right now about it, that, Solvang is going to be up to our necks in it. What it is that every single time we put this off, it gets more and more expensive. So if we have a point of capital right now that we can use, we should stick with it for the moment and just make sure that, on the back end of it, it's not going to come back and bite us.
Dennis Beatty, Solvang. Most of the discussion has been wastewater treatment, but I'm very interested in what's next to the air we breathe, and that's water supply. I'd like to know your opinion as to what we should do about water supply. I don't think we can rely on the water in the state water pipeline. I mean, each year the state decides what percentage of our allocation we should get, and sometimes it's like 5%, even though we're paying for, I believe, 1,500 acre feet each year. So I'd like to know what we're going to do about water supply over the long term.
This is why it's so important to make sure that we keep all of our options open, that we are listening to our staff, consultants, and reports at higher levels of government. We don't know what the world is going to look like in a few years. There's talks about climate change. The water supply is not going to get any larger. There are more and more of us in the state every day, and demand must be met for all of our residents. We must take care of our people. So I think at this point, we need to keep as many sources available to our community as possible, whether that is state water, river water, whatever our treatment plant can meet in terms of recycling water, digging wells. We need to look at all of our options, and maybe we should be looking at what we can do further up. There's plenty of water in the ocean. I don't think the thought of a desalination plant has been studied, and that's something that we should consider in the long term. We are again surrounded by agricultural communities that are gonna need to keep that supply of water. So we should be looking at alternatives as well, other than just the ones that we have right now.
In 2014, California passed the Groundwater Sustainability Act. The Groundwater Sustainability Act, in a nutshell, is a law that requires the basins to be brought back to a sustainable state based on several defined factors. Not this fly. Wow, sorry. Our basin is a medium priority due to its reliance on groundwater for our needs. The number of things that need to be done. But at the last city council meeting, we heard from Matt Vanderlinden again that our groundwater basin is being drawn out more quickly than it's being replenished. So we have an issue with water. We have to figure out a way to incorporate into our groundwater sustainability plan that's due in January of 2022 what we're going to do about this, and we have to get all the stakeholders involved. At present, all but 2 of Solvang's wells are drawing from the groundwater basin. The other 2 are in the river. That's called surface water, believe it or not, even though it's underneath the river. So we have an issue. Solvang has to create, it's got a significant challenge, and it's going to have to work on the water management along with the probable decreasing state water allocations, climate change, lack of storage, and our predicted population growth. So this is not an issue that can be brushed aside easily. Recycling will very likely be needed long-term, period. What we do with the recycling water, how much we recycle, so on and so forth, and was mentioned, we need to be able to do that more now while it's cost-effective if we can. So it'd be great to get the financing while the financing rates are low like they are right now. The impacts on water and sewer rates are unknown. It's important for the council to control water and wastewater expenses as much as possible. City Council will have critical decisions to make, and citizen involvement, especially in the groundwater sustainability program development, will be required to achieve the necessary buy-in. You can get more information if you want on the San Ynez River Water Conservation District website. Thank you.
As a mayor of Solvang, one of the responsibilities is to be a voting force and a representative for various agencies. On behalf of our mayor for the city of Solvang, as a council member, I sit on the board for the Eastern Area Management Water Sustainability Committee. So I represent Solvang in that fact. And we are monitoring the aquifers at this point. I will tell you, as a council member, what we are currently doing to address our water supply. Like I said, we have about $5 million in our water account. Right now, we are looking at the possibility of drilling 2 new wells on the western end. So that's downstream from the Alisal, where we do have 2 wells that we are currently using. Those wells get cut off when the river water supply starts to dwindle. Those get cut off. But then we start relying on the state water. And then, as I said earlier today, we had the opportunity to purchase possibly another 300 acre feet of water from the state. So that's what the city is currently working on. As for the future, digging wells, doing wells, costs millions of dollars just for the well, aside from the infrastructure to bring the water to the city and to pump. We just opened up, about 2 years ago, I think, well number 22 in the Creekside area. That yields us around 754 acre feet of water at a cost of around, I think it was in the 300 per acre foot range. I'm not sure, but that's what we're currently working on with the city today.
I'm grateful that Karen is up on water, and it is an issue that is always here. We've always had this because of the semi-arid region that we actually live in, and I believe that recycling water is a good option for us. I do know that we were hoping to have the Alisal Ranch be a big purchaser of that, but maybe we end up, instead of, they declined at this time, so we lost that possible source of revenue for helping to offset the cost of the chlorination process. But further, I think we need to develop maybe a few more holding tanks in some of those areas. Those are lower cost, and maybe we utilize those for the possibility of we as residents use more recycled water for our landscaping needs, as opposed to just letting everything come out of our tap and set up those systems that way. That's just another option to look at, but definitely water is a huge issue for our area. Maybe looking into developing or giving more capacity to what we have at Kachuma out there as well. I don't understand why, I still haven't figured that out, why there was nothing done to get rid of a lot of the sediment that was out there at the lake as it was when it was in the lowest state possible that it had been for so many years. But just some of the questions that I have concerning water and the ability to store it is a huge issue that I think we need to be able to utilize here in Solvang. And even at the very least, if the city uses recycled water for all of our needs here for landscaping, that would help to address some of those issues of water use.
It's kind of a known thing for everybody here. I'm sure that Solvang has historically had a tumultuous relationship with ID1, and I will give credit to our current city council right out that they've gone a long way towards smoothing that relationship over. And I think that's where we start. Is we start by building relationships. We start by networking with the other organizations throughout the valley and surrounding areas, and we ultimately look to see, okay, are there alternatives that we can find for that? Cloud's idea of desalination on the Solvang level, absolutely impossible. A, we're not next to the ocean, and B, it's prohibitively expensive. But other communities that aren't there, that have the ability to pipe to us, that's a very valid thing to look at and to see whether or not that's something that, as the technology improves and costs go down, this is going to be an option available for us. I actually share your concern. I'm worried about ultimately the effects of climate change with the forecasted drought and everything. Where are we going to get our water? What kind of quality is it going to be? And a few ideas that come to my mind, is the first thing we can do, and this would be all of this ultimately is something that is advised and informed by the experts. Let's look and see if there's a way that we can go about maybe incentivizing less water use within our community. Right now we have our tiered system, which more or less, okay, if you're at tier 1, you pay this amount, so on and so forth. But what if you're somebody who's just, super water conscious, you've decided to, tear out the grass in your yard and put down rocks there instead, kind of do a stone garden, you're using less water now. Maybe we can find a way to incentivize that. And again, this is something that we need to turn to our experts, our financial experts in particular, and see whether this is something we can do that ultimately allows for water conservation, allows us to hold out longer, and at the same time provides benefit back to our community. There's other ideas too here, as far as the infrastructure necessary and available for us to be able to source water from local communities that we can build these relationships with. All of this starts with listening to our experts.
A lot of what I have to say is basically what the other council members think is just common sense. Actually, Charlie, when you said we're in a semi-arid area, that kind of brought me back. I studied geography at Long Beach State, and my focus was physical geography. And one of the things that we learned, this is 10, 15 years ago now, but Southern California, which I think we're still considered Southern California, gets 14.5 inches of rain on average annually. And a desert, an area that has to be classified as a desert, gets less, it's 14 inches and below. So we're only half an inch above basically desert. So water management is a big thing, and it has to be conserved. What I think there's a misconception. There is a lot of groundwater, but it's very expensive to tap a well. If I'm not mistaken, I think I heard it was like $3 million to tap a well. So at least that's a lot of money, and especially right now, like I said, trying to be budget conscious. Tapping a well is not, I think, a very cost-effective solution. But definitely, water management is very important. It's important for the council members to understand that, so that we can manage the water. Because yes, there is a lot of water under the ground, but we shouldn't absorb it all. It's very important to manage it and be conscious of that. When I say a lot of water underground, like Goleta Water District, who I've done a lot of work for down in Santa Barbara area, one of the head engineers there. He actually happens to live in the valley. He's retired now. But he said from Modoc Road right there where State Street becomes Hollister Avenue, all the way out to UCSB, there's more water in the ground there than there is in Lake Cachuma. So I mean, it's pretty incredible how much water that the ground does hold. But it's a wise idea to try and manage what we have and don't abuse the resources that we have, because like I said, we only get about 14.5 inches of rain average in Southern California, and there's not a lot of places that we get water besides from the snow melt in the high Sierras. We don't get a lot of precipitation down here unless it's El Nino year. So it's very important that the City Council understands water management. Thanks.
Very quickly, we're going to do a little housekeeping and take a little 5-minute break. restrooms are this way real quick, and there's water here. So just kind of talk to your candidates for a few moments. We just need to take a little break for just a minute with them, okay? Just very quick, 5 minutes. You need a quick coffee. Okay, we're going to open it up more questions here. Anybody have any questions on anything you would like to ask the candidate? Please do so. 1 minute on there, and we like to say please be respectful to everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Skid again, and this question is primarily aimed at Ms. Waite again. I know with the city attorney that certain items remain confidential, i.e. any personnel matters that they discuss and any commercial or any real estate or property is maintains in confidentiality while it's being in negotiations. But bringing that up, in the last 15 months, the city of Solvang has expended somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million in billing to our city attorney. In the month of May, which the only May he came up, was $84,000 of billing, and one of the items was $40,000 for review of COVID regulations of the state. There were 22 days in that month. That comes up to about his rate of $350 an hour. You divide that in there, it comes up to, he's working about 10 hours a day on the city of Solvang. And then if we ask for additional information, they come back and say, we can't give it to you because it is attorney-client privilege on what we're discussing. Could you please give us some idea what we have gotten for our $750,000 to $1 million in legal fees in the last 15 months?
Certainly, I'm happy to answer that question, and not just happy, but I'm actually proud of the fact that we have hired an individual who has brought us out from underneath potential litigations. Our prior attorney had left us open for litigations and liability. We have been climbing a steep slope to dot our I's and cross our T's. Chip Wolbrant has taken over a number of positions at this point and done them himself, from land use to completely redoing our municipal codes to make sure that everything is up to snuff and that we are using best practices. I put myself out there as a council member to represent this city and to make sure that we were doing things right and that we were not caught off guard ever again. Now, it had been mentioned that there had never been any litigations in the city history of Solvang. But I will tell you that in 1995, we entered into one of, or possibly the most expensive litigation ever in the history of Solvang, and that was the City of Solvang versus ID1. That cost millions. Our current litigations that we may be involved in, which are four, which I cannot go into detail on, are nowhere near that amount. So Chip has done a wonderful job. He has accounted for everything that he has done so far. We've held him accountable to his billings. We are at the top of that hill. We have renegotiated his contract. His rates are coming down substantially. His hourly rates are coming down substantially, and we have capped his salary. I couldn't be happier with what we've done for the city of Solvang right now. What we've done is in the best interest for the residents of Solvang. And I really think that if anyone needs information, it is public, what we're paying him. It's available at the city. And there's nothing being hidden from the city. He is not being paid for going around and doing social services such as hanging lights and being friendly, walking around the city of Solvang. He is not being paid for following our city manager around. He is doing this as a gesture of goodwill to help us, to help this city. And that is the truth.
I'm going to kind of ask not to attack our one of the rules is we do not want to continue to personally make these open questions, but at the same time, don't attack the individual candidates that are in office, okay? Thank you.
Just to clarify one item, the lawsuit that cost the city millions of dollars in the early 90s was initiated by the city to ID1. Nobody sued us. We sued somebody else against the advice of several lawyers. Thank you.
I'd like to elaborate on that, please. I'd like to elaborate on that. At the advice of your attorneys who made a very bad decision, and the city of Solvang did lose that lawsuit, Ed.
Mine is also a money question. My understanding is that there were several $1 million in our reserves, I don't know how long ago, 2-3 years ago, and it's gone. And I noticed that it was last year we had a carnival in the middle of Solvang, which I understand, it can be clarified, lost money. We had a dog and pony light show at Christmas time that cost a lot of money. And I'm wondering where those reserves went. And if any of you on the council are going to consider those kinds of projects that lose money, how is that going to be decided, what we do here to try and raise funds? Because those, to me, as a citizen, were irresponsible choices. And I want to know where our reserves went. Where is all that money? Did it go to those projects? What happened to it? And if any of you know from experience being there, I know one of you's on the council, maybe some of you were involved in finding this out, but I'd like to know what happened to that money. It'll help pay for our water.
And that's to the reserve money, correct?
Yeah, I'm guessing it'll help pay for our water, which is the issue. That's why I brought it up.
All right, first I'll address the carnival. We did not lose money in the carnival. So let's just get that one out of the way. Next, we currently have $9 million and change in our reserves. We also keep one year supply of our operating revenue in reserve. It costs us approximately $20 million to run the city. We expect to be down around projected revenue, which we do have projected revenue, Chris, to be down around $2 million because of COVID. Out of that $2 million, we also cut back $1.8 million with the reduction of staff that was needed. We have managed to infill the staff with our current city attorney, and the cost for hiring our city attorney to fill in for positions that were non-essential, some, let's say land use and code, that was essential, have come under what we have cut back. So basically, it's costing us less to have our attorney take over these positions than it would be to have these individuals still on staff full time. Which also brings me to another question. I've heard a number of statements regarding hostile work environment, firing employees. Absolutely not true. When you talk about a hostile work environment, that is a legal term. And when you talk about laying off employees and having knowledge of these things, I would caution anyone to continue the conversations regarding that, because perhaps there may be some non-disclosure agreements, and I don't know how much information is out there, but it certainly is not coming from the city regarding what is going on with their personnel, because that would be something that would fall under a closed session.
Anybody else want to talk about the reserve that you have researched?
I will touch on the matter of investing on special events and what benefit they bring to Solvang. Let's talk the Christmas festival, for example. It was invested on the drone show. It was invested on bringing a carriage company out of town, to entertain visitors and locals alike. There was a firm that was hired to produce our Christmas festival, our Jewel Fest, and then it was said by certain people that this brought in a lot of money, a lot of visitors, and they hadn't seen this much revenue in the last 2 years. Let's not be short-sighted about this. It's very easy to compare a good Christmas season when the last 2 years you dealt with fires, mudslides, and natural disasters. You have to look at what it looked like prior when you were not taking these investments to produce these festivals. And I am also very disappointed that certain people would look at hiring firms from out of town when we have resources and individuals that can contribute to the entertainment and ambience of these special events without investing public funds. So let's try looking at the bigger picture. Let's just not equate immediate use of funds with revenue. Let's look at what it looked like in years prior, and let's also look at what other cities are doing. Let's not oversee what resources we have in the community that we can put to use and that can contribute to the guest experience without investing those funds that are much needed in situations such as COVID-19. Thank you.
I guess I just soon address some of the issues about special events and projects that come through. Again, I think as Karen mentioned, the city broke even on that. There was a loan that was given for the fall festival, and that was paid back completely. That's my understanding from Andres, the event organizer. Most of the issues that I see with special events, all of it, for the most part, is to try to make Solvang a better experience for people that actually don't live here. Believe that we're trying to get in the tourist dollars. It's a way to help promote this whole industry that we have here that does account for 60% of our budget revenue. And to have the council not make those decisions, those are some decisions depending on what the events are that really do need to be looked at. I know that we've lost some events here because they don't want to deal with the city. We've lost the Score Bike Ride, which at one point we had over 5,000 riders that were coming into Solvang on one weekend day, which really put a lot of revenue for our TOT with those hotels. And not just here, but around the entire valley, because with 5,000 people, our Solvang did not account. We're not able to hold that. Same with the Amgen. We spent a lot of money on Amgen trying to get that here. That was all put together by a lot of local residents here. It was a great event for exposure as a tourist industry and a destination that we're trying to promote. That's what we're looking for, is exposure. And, you know, Joni was here, her and Max, excellent chairmen for our committee. We hosted the time trial, which basically gave us the opportunity to showcase Solvang because we had a start and finish there, as well as the entire valley, which really benefited overall the entire valley, and again brought in extra TOT for us. Long term, those are some of the issues that we need to think of when we bring in special events. It isn't just about getting paid for right then or if we're going to make money on it. It is about our future and exposure. Thank you.
Okay, did you have a question, sir? Were you earlier? Okay.
The gentleman right here, this gentleman had a question.
Thank you. My name is Sam Burke. I live in Solvang. Been here for quite a few years. My question has to do with water in general. Number one, there's been a lot of concern over the last 10 years since the Chumash have been buying up a lot of property. And my one question is, where do they get their water? and I assume that they have their own wells. And another question, Camp 4, when it's developed, what is going to be the impact on the aquifer that Solvang is drawing from? And my last question having to do with water, it has to do with agricultural meters. Is that going to happen? Thank you.
Well, I'm fortunate to have a lot of experienced individuals that have either been on the council or on the water district that's sitting out here right now. And the Chumash actually have first riparian rights to draw on the water. And we do not have control over what they take. And when it comes to managing the aquifers, like I said, I am the representative for the city of Solvang on this eastern area water sustainability committee. Right now we are looking at that. We are looking at to see the impact that Camp 4 and the Chumash land will have on those aquifers. There again, not sure how much control we will have over that. They have been cooperative. They do have representatives on that committee with us in their outreach agency. So they're interested and they are participating with the county in this. So this is a very, very positive move for us. When it comes to metering wells, private wells on large parcels, that is a possibility. Being very transparent about that. We're doing studies right now. We're doing flyover studies. We have all kinds of geological studies going on to figure out which basins are deep, which are shallow, how much water is in there, and where it goes, where it drains off when it does fill. So that's we're about a year into this study right now, and we do have to report to the state by 2022 what our study is and how we have to come up with a plan as to how we are going to be maintaining the water resources. If we don't come up with a plan locally for this, which is why we're working with other joint agencies, then the state will come in and monitor it for us, and we would rather have local control. That's always better.
Anybody else? Lee, you had a question? Oh, you want to keep the papers out? Okay.
There you go. Feel clean now. I was under the impression that this was going to be all about water, but we've diverged into other things. The principal question that I have for any and all of the candidates is, since we are so dependent upon tourism, and particularly if it were possible, high asset tourists, I point out that the average purchase by the tourists that we have now is about 34 bucks. The sales tax on that is negligible, and I would say most of them don't stay overnight. The question is then, how would you market Solvang as a destination resort to someone in San Diego, someone in LA, someone in San Francisco, or other parts? What is the outline and what does the marketing package that you would promote look like today?
Good question. The answer.
So I feel that's I feel that's a very interesting question, because what we actually start to look at here is what's the purview of local government. My personal opinion, and this is my opinion, we have a very competent Chamber of Commerce. We are, and I know everyone is ready to have this discussion as far as, the Visitors and Conference Bureau, whether there needs to be a reconstituted version of this, or whether we need to enable another body to do this, or, allow us to be privatized. These are conversations that are going to happen. We have the experts in marketing and putting out what it is that our city, can do already right here among us. I personally feel that to have the city council come up and direct marketing plans, to have me, a security guy, a Marine combat veteran, it's laughable that I would be the guy coming up with a marketing plan. I wouldn't do it. My belief is that our city council's job is to enable the organizations that we already have in our community, the businesses in our community, to market what it is that they do effectively, and then where possible, to be able to help out as we can to advertise that.
I like what Chris has said. He's made some really good points. But let's talk about this a little bit more generically. One of the things that you've heard a lot about is the diversification of income into the city. So should we go into different businesses? Should we not depend so much on tourism? Those are all possible concepts that can be done. We have some limitations. I mean, the current city council has passed the urban boundary initiative, so we can't expand out beyond the borders and build in businesses that would provide taxes that would come into the city. So we have some limitations in what we can do. The current city council has tried, not always as successfully, I don't think, as they should have, to encourage tourism by some of these events that they've been working on. I think that's okay. I think the city council needs to be able to do that. They hired a group called IDK. If you've been listening to the city council and listened to the IDK reports, these folks have come up with some tremendous marketing knowledge. I think we need to pay attention to it. What can we do about it? How much can we do? This is part of the budget plan that we need to have. What can we spend? I don't know that we have the money to spend it on events that would bring in tourists at this point. One of the things I did hear, though, the closure of Copenhagen, for instance, is that it has been spread out amongst the internet, whatever that might be, that this is a safe place in a COVID-19 environment to come visit, because you could walk down the middle of the street and not be in the, messing with other people, not be close to other people, excuse me. So that's a good thing for right now. We have several events that we can do, and I think we should follow up on those, but we have to be careful about what we spend. We have a budget issue. Thank you.
I would be very interested to see where that $35 amount comes from. That $35 amount makes sense if you are coming in a tour bus that stops at several places around California and you only have an hour to eat something, go to the restroom, and then maybe they get a pastry. But as a day tripper, $35 per person seems a little low. So we need to reassess where we are getting that information from. There is a lot of talk about building the infrastructure and the attractions to attract people that have a higher spending and that will stay several days in town. But we must not forget that we have 20 million possible visitors within a 200-mile radius, 20 million, and many of them have never even heard of Solvang. Solvang is very unique. It looks it's not a mall. Solvang is a community. We have history. We have a close attachment to agriculture. We have amazing backgrounds for Instagram posts. And you know that people right now are all about sharing what they're doing that is so unique that nobody else is doing. And if we provide a charming environment and we also give a place to arts and entertainment and interactive attractions, not just places where to spend money, such as retail and restaurants, then people will start having more of a reason to stay overnight because they know that there are more things to do tomorrow. And those 20 million day trippers become multi-stay visitors. So let's not think about what is lacking. Let's think about the opportunities that we have.
So I'm going to bring up Matt Vanderlin's name again because I don't know if everyone knows this about him, but he's actually an avid surfer. And I grew up surfing also. I bodyboard actually, so I like to ride closeout, shore break waves. But every time I see him, he's another waterman, so I like, even though I don't get to surf that much anymore. Like Klaus said, we need to give people reasons to stay. I mean, instead of just having a pastry or just a bus stop in between Los Angeles and San Francisco, I think I'm going to go out on a limb here, but there are things that you can do in a small footprint to give people a reason to stay, give them something to do. So, like I said, I'm a surfer. I like being in the water. Wave pool technology is growing, and having something like that in a small footprint, they put them on the back of a cruise ship. They can put it on the back of a cruise ship. You could put a surf pond or surf pool in Solvang somewhere. That's an idea to get people to come. That's a reason for you to stay because it's a money bringer. Thinking outside the box is really critical because we have to give people reasons. It's not just the Danish village. We got to keep the village alive as a Danish attraction because that's the heritage of the town. That's one of the things I'm running on. But you have to give people a reason to stay. They can't just come here for pastries and then they leave. You got to give them a reason to stay. So I think looking at ideas like that, I'm not saying that's something that is going to happen. It's an idea. Attract people that would want to invest in something like that. We have a lot of aging infrastructure in the town that's empty, vacant. My friend, the Elings, they own what used to be, it's a mall. What was the outlet store, right? There was a Bass store there. It was a long time ago. I remember coming up to shop there, but that's all vacant right now. If you can attract someone to invest in these properties, businesses that would do something like a surf pool or what have you, laser tag, I don't know, a miniature golf course. People need entertainment. They're here to be entertained. So, thank you.
I got the hard job.
Thank you for taking care of our health and safety, Tracy. Tourism, there's so many things that come to mind. Trying to develop even some, as I believe my opponent and I think myself said yesterday, some type of cultural center that we might have here as well. I think it'd be really valid and another place to be able to bring people to enjoy the valley at Solvang specifically, but maybe again, like I said yesterday, to share a cultural center with some of the other ethnicities and cultures that grew up, that were a part of Solvang and the area where we're at surrounding this entire area. Justin's comment, because my next door neighbor was the Dennisons who way back in the 70s, they actually owned the miniature golf course here. That was another one of the thoughts that I think would be awesome for kids to be able to have that opportunity. I know we missed out on Legoland, but and that was an option that was at one time considered for Solvang, if you have any history here. We turned that down, but a surf thing, that would be awesome. I've advocated for that at some places in Santa Barbara as a surfer myself growing up in Santa Barbara. That's all we had, man. Cowabunga. But opportunities, experiences for people to stay here. We have a number of bike rides that come up here currently and that are still trying to get in here. Car shows. We have a couple of them. We've kind of, as a city as a whole, kind of been negligent and kind of given them the idea that they're not welcome here. And I think that is something, not necessarily with the current council, but just that as a city as a whole, we need to kind of embrace some of those people that have taken the time to actually come here and want to put on an event here and then decide at the last minute that they don't feel welcome. That is something that I really feel I have strength in making a lot of people feel welcome and wanting to come to Solvang.
Thank you.
I really like what I've heard. We need creativity. We need creative minds. I know that we have been using IDK for the last year. They stepped in when we had a need, an immediate need, and especially to help us out during COVID and allow us to have our businesses open up their footprints to stay in business and keep running. I really feel that we can draw from community resources of creativity and find people in our own community that would be willing to help come up with ideas to attract a variety of individuals to Solvang. We need to diversify. We need to diversify not just our businesses, but we need to be able to throw out interest to diversified individuals and groups to come to Solvang. So it is about creativity, and it's about the arts. I actually worked with the producers for Amgen last council last year. I was on a conference call with them when I was up in Carmel at a JPIA meeting, trying to get them to come and do a start or a finish in Solvang. I'm very active in the cycling community. I also pushed to have the Grand Fondo do a start and a finish here and involve Solvang. We need to think about cyclists, we need to think about equestrians, we need to think about shoppers, we need to think about so much, the arts, the fine arts, the music. These are all great ideas, and I was just delighted to hear with the candidates that are running that we are actually on the same page on this, utilizing resources in our own community to diversify.
Hi, my name is Waite. I'm a long-term resident here. I just kind of want to get a sense, it's a general question. This Vets Hall bulldozing was kind of it really rocked the community. I'd like just to get each one of your opinions of how it, and I appreciate your comment on your position on it too, by the way. What would you do differently maybe in these events? And also, what do you envision that property, how do you envision the optimum would be for that property out there?
Do you guys want to take that on today?
I'm sure y'all have opinions.
You want to go first?
Let Joseph go first.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh my goodness, I got COVID. I think the gentleman that's going to develop. I'm on the planning commission, and one of the things I feel kind of like I messed up on was when each of the planning commissioners individually went to meet with I think Ed St. George, I think his name, and he had that grandiose plan. In the back of my mind, I was just looking at it because what he developed was it looked cool, it was a pretty thing, it was a neat thing, and he was talking about buying this property and that property, and then you're going to renegotiate to get. I'm like sitting there, that's a lot of hoops to jump. That's insane. And in the back of my mind, I just smiled to be polite, and in the back of my mind, though, I was saying, dude, this is never gonna happen. Dude, like this is gonna set everyone's heads on fire. And the way it was rolled out, I think, was not cool. It was not a good way. It wasn't a good look. What he was proposing was a neat thing. It was kind of expanding the TRC, gives people a reason to stay somewhere else they can walk to, some more shops. There was mixed use, which is good. It provided housing. But the way he went about it and the way they just slammed it out and said, oh, I'm going to bulldoze the Vets Hall. That's like, come on. My dad's a Marine. My big brother's a Marine. And I don't, that's not cool. And what the space that's used there right now across, I go to the Catholic Church here. I'm a member of the parish here, the mission. And coming out and seeing something, like I think developing something that's going to be attractive, because that is a gateway into the town. So having something that's there that's going to be good. I should have told him, dude, if you want to keep something on your own property and develop the property that you purchased, that's cool. But take it a little bit at a time. You can't just hit people over the head with a sledgehammer and say we're going to just do this huge grandiose thing, because it was way too much to do. So I think having him develop his property is fine, and it's another. If I remember correctly, he did want to do something that would give people a reason to stay. He wanted to do I'm almost done. I haven't thought.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about this.
Okay, we're gonna talk more about it, but yes, I think it was delivered wrong, and I think we should look at it with reason and not have our heads up higher. The vet hall is not going down. That's a bad idea.
Tell your dad and your brother thank you for your service. And as I've mentioned a couple times, I'm a U.S. Marine, so imagine how I felt finding out that the Vets Hall was in threat. Buildings like that, organizations like that, they usually get a dedication the moment they're erected. They're dedicated to those of us who came back home and to those of us who couldn't make it back home. I've got more buddies than I like to think about that didn't come back home. And since then, I've got plenty of buddies who were part of the 22 a day statistic. The Vets Hall, as far as I'm concerned, tearing that down, absolute no-go. Absolutely not. The property, as it is now in the third stage of proposal with the planning commission, everything like that, there's somebody in our community who, I said something that had me absolutely laughing out loud, and that was, that kind of looks like a army barracks, but that's doing a disservice to army barracks. And I would agree with that from firsthand experience. What my hope is that, we are in a situation right now with the way that SB 330, which essentially allows for low-income housing, to address the housing crisis across the state. With that situation, as St. George can do this property the way that he wants to and request, I believe it's up to 3 accessions, and that's kind of where he's done right now. What my hope is that he's going to tone it down. He's going to listen to the guidance from the Planning Commission, everything like that, and from the the Design Bureau and all. And with some hope, he's going to decide not to try and make an enemy of everyone in this town. Scale this thing down, make it look, appropriate and in the theme of this town as it stands right now, and just leave it alone. But that's all not going anywhere.
This question has a number of facets to it. If you ever saw the interview with Ed St. George, where he talked about the fact that the mayor pulled him aside and said, no, Bill, just the car. We want you to do this whole thing, and we'll give you an exclusive contract to do that. Okay, so the mayor overstepped, as far as I'm concerned. Way overstepped. And then Mr. St. George comes up with a design that has been suggested doesn't match this city at all, and it destroys a number of facilities that he had no right to say he could destroy. Okay, Solvang 2.0 is dead, period, end of sentence. I don't think you're going to find anybody that wants to support that. The suggestion that he is going to build the apartments on the old lumberyard property is there. There are some situations with that one that are going to cause some problems. He is taking the exceptions. I think the only thing that's liable to stop him is the environmental impact report. Because one of the exceptions he's taking is for parking lots. He's got a half parking space per apartment. So that means where are you going to put all the cars? They're all going to go out on Maple Street, they're going to go on Pine Street, they're going to go on Atterdag, Alisal, thank you. That's just not going to work very well. So, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think the answer is, that's dead. Now we have to deal with Mr. St. George and his personal property that he wants to develop into apartments. Thank you.
The problem that I saw with the Solvang 2.0 concept of the multi-purpose building that was going to be put up in place of the Veterans Hall is that if you look at the design, it shows a blatant disregard of what our community needs and a huge favor towards commercial use. There was some thought given towards living quarters, but the main thought of it was commercial enterprise. And we must not forget that we are representing the people that live here first. Tourists come and go. Nobody is going to deny that tourism spending is important, but we also need to remember that as residents, we are the ones that live here. We are the ones that commute and enjoy or endure what it means to live in Solvang on a regular basis. So we cannot put these commercial projects in as a priority and ignore what our community needs. Nobody asked us how the senior center is utilized. Nobody asked what relevance the library has. Nobody asked us, what future we see for the Veterans Hall. And the Veterans Hall is an invaluable place for community gatherings, quinceañeras, weddings, fundraisers, skating on Friday nights, dances. We need this community space. We do not have enough venues to hold our community gatherings. And as we have seen, civic engagement, community is important. We cannot do without these spaces. If we are going to invest city funds on projects like this, we need to see what it is that the community needs and how it benefits, not just what it means in terms of tax revenue.
I think I made it pretty clear from the very beginning that I was not in favor of the concept of Solvang 2.0 that the developer at St. George was bringing to the table. I think really the bottom line with all of that is that's what spurred a lot of some of the suspicions that what was going on behind the backs. And I think that's a transparency issue that is being talked about still to this day. Why did that just get sprung on the residents here in Solvang? There should have been some public meetings prior, or as Justin mentioned, it had come to the Planning Commission, but not everybody at that time was really watching out what was going on, and that's what I would urge everyone here as a resident now. All of us here, we are trying to run on transparency, and that project singularly didn't appear to have that. With that said, I was definitely not an opponent of it. Vets Hall stays as far as I'm concerned, and then to branch it out to further to Solvang Park, to take over that as well and redo the parking lots. We have issues where we need to address the parking, especially now that Copenhagen Drive is shut down. Going further, the vision that St. George is developing on the old lumberyard property, I'm hopeful that he will listen to the suggestions that the Planning Commission has made to him, lowering the height, at least lowering the height of the front building, if not the other ones, just to give it a little bit more of a look that doesn't seem like it's right in our face. That is one of our eastern entrances. It is our eastern entrance, and it needs to be something that's more in keeping with the motif around there. Not necessarily Danish, because what's right across the street is our beautiful Mission, and right next door is our beautiful Vets Hall that we tried to develop. So maybe something along with the Spanish Moorish architect would be an option. Thank you.
You and me both, man. We talk so much.
All right. I want to bring out right off the bat that the city of Solvang did not solicit Mr. St. George to come do this project. At any time, and I know that that's been going around, at any time any developer can submit a plan or plans to the city for what they think that they want to build. So in no way was the city doing any backdoor deal with Mr. St. George. I'm unaware of the meeting that was mentioned with our current mayor and Mr. St. George. That certainly was not something that the council discussed. As you know, he presented the city with 3 different renderings. He presented the people with 3 different renderings, none of which were even made it to an approval process. And taking the input from the residents of the city of Solvang, Mr. St. George wound up pulling those plans, which everyone calls Solvang 2.0. However, Solvang 2.0, I believe, was coined by one of my other co-council members, and it was a general term for bringing Solvang into the future. But somehow it became focused on just this one project of the demolition of the Veterans Memorial Building. Moving forward, that is not happening. Mr. St. George is not going to do that. Residents of the city of Solvang do not want that. So at this point, that's off the table. My concern right now is making sure that the public is well aware of the projects that he has planned for the lumber yard. There are 2 renderings that I'm aware of, and I have asked the council to agendize that so that we can take a look at this. And I want to make it very public, very public. I don't want it just to be thrown out as one workshop, here it is. I want everyone to be aware of it. I want to have multiple workshops, lots of input from the community on this, because I do not want to get caught like we were the last time around, which could have been done better and more efficiently and effectively, and we wouldn't be standing here discussing this today if it had been done correctly.
All of our candidates want to take a few minutes and just do a closing statement today. On next Tuesday at 8 o'clock in the morning to 9:30, that we will be at Chomp again in the facility outside. It's actually a little bit more closed in, so it's not as sunny. And actually the topic of discussion is going to be the planning department. It's going to be housing and land use management. So yeah, we did take the question, but at the same time, they want to do a closing statement on how they feel about things today. And I thank you all. So let's start with Karen.
I want to thank you all for coming out, starting off this beautiful, I hope will be beautiful Saturday. Maybe it reaches the hundreds, not sure. I'm running for mayor at a time that is very important. These are unprecedented times. These are unusual times right now. I believe that the city of Solvang deserves a choice in who they are going to elect for mayor. I believe that the city of Solvang residents need the choice of a qualified candidate for mayor, and I am that candidate. I want to address the candidates sitting here just to remind them that they aren't running against any other current city candidates, city council candidates. You're it. All the other city council members, they're out. So it's you all running against each other up there, because I hear a lot of talk about what the prior council has done, and I hear the voices of the community saying their disappointment with what prior council has done, What I want to hear from the new incoming council is what you can do for the community. That's really what I want to hear, and that's the main purpose for me being in these debates, because if I'm elected mayor, I will be sitting there with either one of you.
I would again like to thank everyone for being here, taking the time to come out and learn about your candidates that are running for public service to better represent you. I'm running again just because I feel on my qualifications that I am uniquely qualified. I don't believe that just being on committees or even being on the current council actually makes you the best qualified person. There are other attributes that come about, and I think some of that is what I can bring to the table as a mayor, one who in my job and my personality that I am, I'm still one that I try to find a common ground in everyone, and I don't try to dismiss anyone's opinions. Whether they agree with me or not is beside the point. Everyone feels the need to be heard, and I respect that from everyone. It doesn't matter if your opinion is the same as mine or not. I know I discussed with my compadre right over here, Mr. Bowyer, that we're in some ways a lot different on our beliefs, but I believe that we have the ability to have discussions, and that's really what I feel is needed and what I believe has been lacking a little bit. I will be, again, my ability to be able to bring and find common ground with all different types of peoples. I've worked with current city staff, current city council members, past mayors, from all of them since 2003, worked with the schools in various capacities as either a school resource deputy or working as a volunteer to help out our youth. Those are some of the issues that I feel are still important here as a small town, which is what is the beauty about being in Solvang. We are still a small town. That's why we all live here. That's why we chose to retire here. That's why we chose to raise our families here. And I would just encourage you, vote for who you feel is the best qualified to do the entire job and to represent your city to the best of their ability, trying to do the best of good for everyone here and everyone's opinions. I also would encourage everyone here just to vote. We sometimes lose that deal where we think our voice isn't heard, and I would just want to encourage everyone again to just vote whatever your heart and your head tells you, because it is one of the most important things and one of our rights that we have as American citizens. Thank you so much for your support.
Claudia, you're excited for this.
She's excited
I think
to get
we all are. I'm going to stand over here because the sun is kind
Getting
of
hot.
intense. It is getting hot. One of the coolest things I've through this experience is I've been going around knocking on doors, which is against my fiber of being, because I don't like bothering people and I like to be left alone. So taking the courage to walk up to someone's door and like, hey, I'm running for city council, consider me. That's one of the cool things is I've got to meet a lot of people in the town, and I got to meet the new council, prospective council member candidates. Excuse me. The other day we were walking in the neighborhood and I met a guy that was just so excited about pickleball, and he just would not let us go. And and I know I have passions too about my hobbies and sports, surfing being one of them. But it's a blessing to be running for city council. And my promise to you, Karen, is if I do get elected, I feel bad for you because you had to sit next to Christy Ernest for the last couple of years. And the look on your face most of the time explains how you're feeling sitting next to him. But that being said, decorum is very important. And my promise to you, Karen, is if you do get elected, I want to make sure that we have proper decorum. We set ourselves as good examples for citizens. Fiscal responsibility is very important. This is all of our tax dollars. We got to really watch our budgets, keep an eye on set budgets, keep to them so we don't overspend, because that's really important, especially post-COVID. But the other thing that's encouraging is, yeah, there's going to be a brand new council, and I think from seeing the people here, I think hopefully the decorum will be a lot better. And going forward, we want to keep a very civil attitude and be open to listening to the residents of this town and working for common purpose. Thanks.
Who are you?
What?
Who are you?
My name is Justin Rodriguez. Sorry. Thank you.
If I had known that I was ever to represent the citizens of Solvang, a town that has given me so much, I would have taken the time to study law and maybe major in engineering instead of studying dance and theater and hope to get picked up by Cirque du Soleil. But you never know what life is going to throw at you. We had the opportunity as a family to grow and thrive by starting a business in Solvang, and there was no way that was going to happen if we didn't work together. So as an artist, I have an appreciation for history, for architecture, for diversity. We are a very diverse town, even though we are known as the Danish capital of America. We have people from all walks of life that make a part of our community, and they all deserve their voices to be heard because they all contribute in a way that nobody else can. As a business owner, I understand what it means to get your hands on when you have to. I understand what it means to have to make do with $5,000 when you wish you had 50. And I understand what it's best to take a step back and let somebody that is more knowledgeable than you to do their job and look at the bigger picture, even when you want to be hands-on on everything. So I feel that my experience makes me a qualified candidate. I certainly wish that I had the experience and knowledge that Karen Waite has on water, but I also trust that by having the expertise of staff and engineers and people that have served for many years and know way more than I do, by giving them the tools that they need to do their job correctly as advisors, by being open to the advice and experience of people that have served before and members of the community, then we can do a good job as representing and serving our community. Thank you so much for being involved. I hope that the upcoming generations will get just as involved in public government. And thank you so much for being here again.
So, for this gentleman's sake, if you don't know, my name is Mark Infanti. I'm here because I don't like what the city council's been doing for the last couple of years. I'm really disappointed in some of the decisions that have been made. I don't like what's been happening. Take Chris Diurnis, please. Bad joke, I know. There has been, I like what Charlie said, you need to have some respect. The people that come up and say they want to talk to you, whether you agree with them or not, you need to respect their opinion. And I couldn't agree more. That is something that we need to be able to do. That's this transparency word we keep throwing around, showing them what we feel. Listening to what you feel is the other part of that respect. I'm a little disappointed. Look at the size of this crowd. How many voters are there in the city? Over 3,000? And we have just a few people. And I don't know a good solution to that. I put a bunch of signs up. People recognize me now because I got my face on these signs. I don't have any more words of wisdom. I think we can do better. I think we need to be more respectful to the city and the citizens of this city. I think we need to be able to maintain the culture and design of this city. But we need to have a budget. We need to have some decisions made that make sense for the environment that we're in. And I hope you'll help me do that. Thank you very much.
Karen, I'm going to disagree with you on one thing. I'm just out here for a jog, and I'm really happy to see these guys are out running too. I'm not running against anybody, and that's not what this is about. Every single person sitting up there right now, and myself included, and obviously every single one of you, to your core, however else you approach it, you have the best interests of our community at heart. The one thing you will never see me do is knock anybody that's sitting up here right now, say anything negative about what it is that they are doing for their community, because they are trying to do the right thing by all of us. We have different ways of looking at it. We have different ways of approaching certain situations. We have different values that we hold. But every one of us is willing to tell you honestly to your face why it is that we're doing this, what we're trying to accomplish, and where our values stand and how that's going to impact you. For me personally, the biggest thing for me is listening. Listening to my community, listening to the experts. My mentor, a guy I look up to enormously, was a Green Beret with 10th Group. And the very first lesson he imparted on me was, listen to your guys on the ground and always trust that they are going to tell you what is going on honestly. And that's my big thing. And that advice has served me well through my whole life. I won't say I'm definitely the only one, but I'm likely the only one out of this group of people who has sat across the table from somebody who was trying to kill him yesterday, and I'm still here. Listening to other people's perspectives, considering them, having honest discussions, and figuring out where we can come together and find a solution that is mutually beneficial for all of us is how we actually get things accomplished. Not by being divisive, not by going out and tearing down one candidate's signs or defacing them, but by having these conversations. Thank you.
I want to say thank you to all the candidates. Thank you for everyone for coming today. It's a privilege to, I want to say, run for office, and I thank everyone for running for office. So please give them a very round of applause. Now, we again will be at Chomp in the center outside Tuesday morning from 8 to 9:30 to talk about land use management, planning, and housing. So we hope you come. And that Thursday, we will be at Casa Casara from 6 to 9, so you can have wine with the candidates or you can have coffee.
In
So,
Vino Veritas.
so thank you. And I thank you all for spending your morning before it got too hot. Thank you.
Who gets the